Welcome to the Postalmate webinar, New Owners Quick Start. My name is Karen Grant and I'll be your instructor today. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, welcome to Postalmate and to the Postalmate family. It's not just a software, it's a community, and we are glad to have you. Our industry is relatively small in nature. There are about 3,500 independent stores in our industry, and then there, of course, are some franchises and what have you. And we have about 85% of the independent stores in our using Postalmate in our family. So we do get to know you when your name comes up in support. Our support team is about 8 people, and they get to know those names very frequently and know who you are. And we do expect in the beginning that you'll be asking more questions and learning, so we do expect you to call more often. Don't feel bad about that. We want you to get the right answers. And some of you have purchased an existing store from a previous store owner, and some of you are starting from scratch. If you purchased from an existing store owner, you may have received some training from that person. And that person may have been a wonderful store owner and you got yourself into a great situation. And you'll want to make some changes, but you maybe want to keep a lot of things the same as him or her because it was a successful uh, formula. You may have purchased a store from a store owner that wasn't quite as successful as you think it should be. And so you may want to make lots of changes. So you need to be open to all the things that we're going to talk about today and the things you're going to learn about in the future that might improve your store. And of course, if you're starting from scratch, you don't know what to do yet. You don't know if you're doing the right thing. We're going to help you get there. All the things you're going to see in Postalmate today is the way we recommend you set it up. It doesn't mean it has to be this way, but especially for beginners, we do recommend it this way. Now, if you purchased a store and it already has several employees that are used to using Postalmate a particular way, because there's lots of customization, I don't recommend you go and change everything drastically and have them get hiccups. But you need to consider perhaps the previous owner didn't know some things that have changed or that are better that might work better for your store. So moving forward, let's talk about supported hardware real quick, and I will be having a big webinar on this coming up in the very near future because Windows 7 has gone away. Microsoft has stopped supporting Windows 7, and that means that they will not issue any security patches or issue any corrections. So Postalmate also will stop supporting Windows 7. Now, hear me well, that does not mean Postalmate will not work on Windows 7. That will be true sometime in the future. It could be next month. It could be 3 years from now. I can't tell you that because I don't know the changes that are going to happen over the next time period. But I don't want you to panic if you have Windows 7 computers. I do want you to consider getting a new Windows 10 computer, not upgrading your Windows 7, but actually getting new Windows 10 computers, particularly as the master workstation if you are a networked store, and most stores are. So that would be something that you could invest in that would really help out your store. And always have your strongest computer be your master workstation. We always recommend that your master workstation be out in the front where you use it, not in your office. Because if you have network issues, and those do happen, and your computer in your office is your master and it's working fine, well, that doesn't help you ship packages in front of the customer. And if you have to call in a network technician to come and help with your network situation, it could be several hours with you not having a computer that is working out front. And I will warn you that Windows 10 frequently makes updates that can play with your network. And that's not a Postalmate thing. We can't fix that. We can't change how Windows 10 does things. So, but you need to be aware of that so that you are doing what's best in your store. Postalmate's going to, when we say we don't support Windows 7 any longer, what that means is every time we have a release, a new release for a new version of Postalmate, we don't test it on Windows 7 computers anymore. Chances are very good it will work for a while with Windows 7. So if you use Windows 7, particularly on auxiliary stations, that's fine, but be planning, be saving money, $20 a week or whatever in a little piggy bank, and save money until you can get new computers to replace all the workstations in your store. Most stores have 2 working computers in your store. A busy store will need 3. Very seldom do we find stores that need more than 3. but some have them. You can have up to 7 computers running PostalMate for your store, for a single store location. So up to 7, and that includes, you could have a home computer, your laptop. You could have 5 stations in your store. So that would be fine as long as it's all for the same store. All right, moving forward. Excuse me. Training opportunities, because obviously you need to know what you're doing now. So let me share with you what we have. Our website has most of our training opportunities on it. There are over 100 tech notes. There are close to 100 or maybe 120 videos. Videos are very short. They're anywhere between, let's say, 20 seconds up to maybe 7 minutes, with the average probably being 2 or 3 minutes long. And it just teaches you how to do one specific thing in PostalMate. So it doesn't make you listen to a long webinar. But we do have lots of webinars, and we record those webinars, and we typically post those webinars on our website. And so we probably have at least 20 webinars currently posted to our website. I will warn you, our website is in the process of being replaced. We've been having issues. We've been overloading it because of all the webinars and videos and what have you that we've been adding to it. So we've needed a new website, and it's a long process for us. It's taken us over a year to get this new website ready. It is in the final stages. I have looked at it. It will look quite different, but it will be able to handle all the things that we need and give you lots of training opportunities on it. I anticipate that will probably be a spring release, so sometime in the near future. But also what that means is we're not posting as many of the webinars and things on our website as we have in the past, because we don't want to break it and have it just not work at all by adding more stuff. So you generally, when we do a webinar, get emailed the webinar later on in that day, or it's actually a link to rewatch the webinar. Or even if you sign up for a webinar and you're not able to attend, we generally will record it and send it to a link for you to watch it later. So that's how that works. We also have regional workshops where we come to areas that might be close to you. And this year we just did Orlando. We have Houston, Hartford, Seattle, and San Diego. And that's in order. So just if I can do it by memory, Houston is in March, Hartford is in June, Seattle is in August, and San Diego is in November. So if any of those work for you, you can go to our website and look at our website and see exactly the dates. And as soon as we get the hotels available for those, we've got all the hotels but San Diego picked, but Seattle, we're still waiting for a link. So as soon as we have that, you can register. Great opportunity to do a business trip slash vacation if you have that opportunity. I usually go to those. I don't always, but I usually go to those, and I am one of your instructors. Communications, make sure that we have your correct email address. Sometimes when you sign up for PostalMate, you use a personal email address, but once you get started in your store, you have a business email address. Make sure we have the right one, because we send sometimes really critical information via email. So for example, if FedEx or UPS or Indicia is having a server outage or something, we will email you when we discover that. Or if there's a critical bug, or if there is something sudden that happened, we will email you that. Sometimes credit card processors are having issues. Sometimes there's something really important about an update that's coming up that you have to know. We will email you about that. So please make sure we have your correct email. Also, same with phone numbers. Sometimes you gave us your cell phone or home phone when you signed up with Postmate. We need to make sure we have your store phone. We will always call your store first. I know sometimes you like to give us your cell phone, but we're in the habit of calling the store first, because sometimes when we call your cell phone, you're not at your store, and we might need you to be near your computer. So you can leave your cell phone and you can request that we call your cell phone, but always leave your store number too. And we need to have that contact. If that has changed, just email support@pcsynergy.com to update that. Okay, and to get the best support, call or email us, give us your store, your name, your store number, just this first 6 digits of your serial number, and tell us the issue you're having. And this is really important. This is the secret to getting good support. Those stores that call us and say, this is Mary at Mail and Ship and 555-1212-1212, please call me back. She goes to the bottom of the list. Everybody that calls later that day with or that later that hour, and they tell us what the issue is, they go on top of her. She sits at the bottom because we don't know what the issue is. We don't know how to assign it. We'll get to it when we can get to it. When you tell us what the issue is and on what computer workstation it is, then we're able to better assign it, and to a tech who has good experience and a working knowledge in that area. So please be sure and tell us what the issue is. Our responses are not on a first come first serve basis. They are on a triage basis. So most important or most critical will get a call first. If you call and say, yeah, I need to know what report has blah, blah, blah on it, and the next call is, oh my gosh, I'm having issues and I can't open Postmate, that guy gets the call first, even though the report question came earlier. And because we feel that it's very important that you be able to run your software and ship at your store. And we don't get too many calls about your software not opening. I don't want to freak you out because you're new. The most common reason for your software not opening is there's a Windows update pending or doing something. I've got to call a guy right now, poor fella. His Windows updates have been going on for an hour this morning and he can't open Postmate until that. And he's calling us up saying, can I just reboot? No, when a Windows update starts, you have to let it finish. So he's closed until his Windows updates. So make sure you stay on top of your Windows updates as well as your Postmate updates. So, before we go to Postmate, I know it says let's go to Postmate. On your webinar dashboard, you have something called handouts section, and you should see something called support contact PDF. I want you to click on that. It should open up in your browser, and you should be able to print that. And it's just a cheat sheet, if you will, or a help to get the best support. And it's got a little cutout where you can cut it out and put it next to your phone at your store for you and your employees, how to get the very best, quickest support from Postmate when you need it. Because when you need it, boy, you need it. All right. Now we're going to go to Postmate, I promise. When you come into your store each day, make sure that you open Postmate fresh. Do not leave it on overnight, okay? Bad things can happen. You can have a storm. You can have a power outage. We want you to have open Postmate fresh every single morning. When you open it fresh, I want you to open Postmate first, and when it comes up, let it completely load, give it a moment, and then you can either click on the POS here, you can click on the POS here. If you have it on your bottom taskbar, you can click it there, I don't care. But when you do, it's going to open Cashmate, and that will launch. We'll give it just a moment. And then it might have a prompt that pops up, but if it doesn't, you can just go up to File. Come on, Karen, File. Open Register Day. And that's where you tell Postmate how much your starting cash is. If you want to count out your drawer in the morning, you can click on this little button here and it helps calculate your cash for you. And then you click OK. And now your day is ready to begin. Usually stores have this screen as their main screen, but if you're more comfortable, if you do a lot of retail sales and you want to have Cashmate as your main screen, that's fine too. By the way, while we're over here, I want to point out, see this beautiful Postmate logo, and I really like our Postmate logo, but I'll bet you have a logo for your store or would like to get a logo for your store. That would be great. You can replace this Postmate logo with a logo from your store, and see the blue stripe on the bottom? Maybe blue is not your store color. Maybe green or red is. You can change it. We have about, I'm going to say 8 or 10 different colors that you can choose from to make this function more like a custom software for your store. So we're going to go through, and I'm just going to ship a package, and we're going to point out some things. Now, you've probably been shipping a package for as long as you've been in your store, but I'm going to point some things that you may not have noticed or may not know about. Also, I want to show you prompt screens, because these screens may come up different than in yours. It's only setting changes. If you see something in mine that you don't see in yours, it's simply because you don't have it turned on. My Postmate and your Postmate is exactly alike, except that I'm using test servers. So it will give me test labels instead of actual labels. So as you see over on this side over here, I have 6 items here. You might have 6, you might have 5, you might have 4, you might even only have 3. It's simply things that you have not turned on. You don't have to turn them on. If you don't use freight, you don't have to have freight on. Totally up to you. But In Ship and Mail, the most common button you'll be using is Parcel or Document for shipping a package. Sometimes you have just something lightweight, you're going to throw a stamp on it and you're going to use Quick Postage. Frequently, all too frequently, we have drop-offs that you're going to record, and drop-offs are done here. But let's go through and do Parcel or Document, because there's some things that are subtle that you may not have seen that I think you're going to like. So the first thing it wants to know is, who is the customer in front of you? And when you're entering that information, I want you to enter the complete address with their phone number. Some shipments require a from phone number. That's particularly true on international. So make sure that you have that whole from address and phone number in there. Don't use your store as the return address chosen here. Now, having said that, you've probably noticed that many of the labels print out with your store as the return address, even though you choose your customer. That's because UPS and FedEx require your store to be the return address for all domestic shipments, not international, just domestic. Post office and all carriers with international shipments use the customer's return address. So you need to be sure and have that. It is a requirement of the carriers that you have the customer information, however, their name, their address, and their phone number should something go awry or there be something in that package that's not allowed and is found along the way. And that's having to do with security. So make sure that you're not caught in the middle of something bad and you get that complete information from your customer. Ideally, a web or an email would be good too. So you can either add a brand new customer or choose one. This is your custom database. It only has information from your stores. It doesn't include any other store, and it is particular to you. So I'm just going to pick a customer, and then I'm going to choose the next button. And then it's a zip code to where it's going to. You may notice this magic little button down here. It says show only records for this customer. When you click on this, it becomes the personal address book of the customer you've chosen. In other words, it's only going to show addresses for where this customer has shipped to before. When you uncheck it, it goes back to options of everything in your database. So all customers all the ship to addresses in your database. If you want to add a new customer, you just click add, or a new ship to, you click add, and then you start with their first and last name, and then enter their address. Pretty simple. Oops. Sorry, I'm not a real fast typist. There we go. And make sure you get the correct city, because if not, there's an address correction, and there can be a fee associated with that. There's not usually, but there can be. So make sure you get the correct city. Now down here, it's going to ask you for their phone number. Doesn't matter if you smash it all together, and their email if you have it. Now, I told you I was going to show you some stuff you may not have noticed. Once in a while, you have that customer comes in, maybe they're on vacation visiting your area, and they purchase some stuff and they're going to ship it to their home. So they come in and they give you an address from, let's say, Iowa, and you get all that information. Then you get to the ship to and you say, okay, where are we shipping it? And their answer is, well, we're shipping it to the same address I just gave you. I'm shipping it to my home. And you go, oh, and you start to ask for all that information again. You don't have to do that. Way down in the left corner, there's something called copy from customer. It will just transfer over all the information, address information from or your customer, and place it also in the ship to, so that you don't have to re-ask all that information. Kind of cool. Also, on this page, we need to notice that there's a verify online. This verify online is very important. It works with Indicia's Dial-A-Zip, and it checks to see that this address is a valid address according to the United States Postal Service. And according to the USPS, is it residential or commercial? That's very important distinction. Here's why. UPS and FedEx don't always agree with USPS on whether an address is a residence or a business. And UPS and FedEx charge you more money when it's going to a residence than to a business. So you need to be sure when you're talking to your customer that you're comfortable if they say it's a commercial or a residence, that it really is. When in doubt, choose residence. So when we click on this, it verifies, it might change it, it capitalizes everything nicely. It adds the zip 4, and then it tells us that it's residential. Let me give you some examples of when it wouldn't be a residence, but it might feel like it should be a residence, um, or vice versa, actually vice versa. So let's say we're sending to ABC Nursing Home. Okay. If you send something to ABC Nursing Home, it's probably going to get tagged by UPS and FedEx as going to a resident or residence. So if it's going to grandma at that nursing home, it's a residence. But here's the trick. In the company or somewhere in the address line, if you were to type in office manager ABC Nursing Home, so you could have first name office, second last name manager, and then in company ABC Nursing Home, then it will be probably designated as a business or commercial delivery. It is the delivering driver that determines whether it's a residence or business. And so that can affect your bill greatly. Places to be careful about, of course, nursing homes, college dormitories, residential treatment facilities. And just as a heads up, any place where a person does sleep or can sleep is a residence. That means if there's a home business and they don't live there, doesn't matter. It's a home business and it's a home. That's a residence to the driver. So be very careful with that because it can hurt. Every little ding hurts. Last but not least is the Google Maps. If you have any question about whether it's a residence or business, or you want to make sure that you kind of got the right address, you can click that. It works for pretty much all addresses domestically and most address, well, no, some addresses internationally. But we can see this when we click on this, it's clearly a residence. I don't think there's any chance that this is a business. So there we go. And then we click OK. Now, once we click OK, it's going to update commits for zip code. And that means it sends out feelers to the servers available from all the carriers about what the time in transit should be for this package. And this screen may not populate on yours or may not pop up on yours. These are called prompt screens, each one of these screens. If your scale is connected to your computer, there is no reason you need to have this screen up. But let's say for some reason your scale is not connected to your computer, or that your connection, maybe the cord one day breaks from your computer to your scale. Don't panic. You can always turn off the connection between the two and manually enter. So I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to say 1 pound for a minute. And then we're going to hit the next button. This is another prompt screen that you can turn on or off. This is for our ProPack estimation program where Postalmate can help you choose the right box and bubble wrap and peanuts if you're packing an item, but we're not going to show that today. And then this screen is one of the most important screens in Postalmate, bar none. This is where you're going to enter the outer dimensions of the package or choose carrier branded packaging. So let me share first the difference between what we call generic packaging and carrier branded packaging. Generic packaging is pretty much anything your customer brings in or that you pack, with the exception of carrier branded. Carrier branded is provided by the carrier. It's something either you give to the customer or he has gotten from the carrier somewhere else and brings in. It's always for particular types of services and never for their slow services. So for example, with FedEx and UPS, it's never for ground, ever for ground, and it cannot be used for ground. You'll get charged air prices if you put a ground label on it. And for post office, it's usually a flat rate box. So I'm just going to pull up real quick. Let's see if I can do this. Here we go. There's our website. Here is an example of FedEx carrier branded packaging. And all of this stuff, you would choose the carrier branded packaging here because there's different pricing for these than there are for standard packaging or generic type packaging. So you want to make sure you choose the correct item and move forward. If it is just a generic package, maybe they dumpster dived, maybe you provided a box that they're buying in your store, then you're going to choose generic. This is where it gets really important. You're going to enter the outer dimensions of the box. And again, this is an area where you can get hit hard on your bill if you're not very careful. You always have to measure every box. Get a 12-foot tape measure and keep it very close to your scale and measure the outside. Generally, it's practice to round up because the carriers tend to round up. That's up to you if you want to enter exact measurements or round up. But here's the one thing I never want you to do. Do not enter the measurements that are written on the bottom of the carton. Those are only the interior measurements. They don't include the walls of the box. And I'm going to show you something here. Let's say that this box, let's say I skip entering the measurements completely. And I go here where we declare a value, again, very important screen. And we get to the rate comparison screen. And I'm just going to pick on FedEx for a minute here. See this $14.89? Let's say it was an 8-cube box. It went up to $17.34. That's because of the size of the box. When we click on this, it tells us it's dim rated at 4 pounds, even though it only has a 1 pound thing in it. Okay, so size matters. But here comes important. What if it actually is an 8-cube box, but it measures out at 8.5, 8.5, 9? Well, let's go 8.5, 8.5, 9. And see if it changes this 1734. It does. So if you had only entered the measurements that are written on the bottom of the carton, you would have lost like $1 on this box. Typically, we can't afford to do that too often. So make sure that you measure every single package. So I'm going to go back a couple of screens here. I think we've learned we're going to enter the measurements. So I'm going to enter 8, 8, 9. And then let's talk about some of these two buttons down here. The first one is very important. It's when you have to add additional handling manual because the item is not, the article is not in a standard container. The carrier, each of the carriers provides you service guides and they're online. And it would behoove you to read the back end of these service guides, some of the terms and conditions and rules and things like that, because additional handling fees are not cheap. We're talking between $15 and $25 a hit if you don't include this. So let me explain some of the items that are included in article not in standard container. Bucket, pail, wooden crate, metal toolbox, Rubbermaid container, rolled up rug, a round tube like you would have a poster in, a number 7 padded envelope is a non-standard container. You need to check mark this box. And how will you know what things? Well, like I said, you're going to need to go and read those. You might want to start making a list of all the things that would be considered non-standard. But basically, if it's not in a standard box or bag, then you're going to check mark this so that you can be sure. Now, if it requires a surcharge due to something Postmate already knows because of its size, because of its weight, Postmate's going to pick that up automatically. But Postmate cannot see the container that your item is in, so it can't guess when to apply. It doesn't know that it's a suitcase on your scale, or that it's a metal toolbox, or a Rubbermaid container that you've put tape all over, or a tire. Those things, a lot of these things don't have to even be in a box. You can ship it as it is, but it will have to have additional handling applied because of the container. The last item here is padded envelope or soft pack, and you may or may not have this on your screen. It depends on your Endicia account. So if you do have this on your screen, you would only select this when you're using cubic rate services for an envelope. That's the only time you would select that. Oh, okay. Next, how much is this item worth? This is a really critical thing, and I'm just going to tell you up front. Some states have an issue if you always call insurance because it's not insurance. UPS, FedEx, and DHL offer you declared value coverage, which is different than insurance. So you may want to call it declared value coverage. Generally, if you say to your customer, how much do you want to insure this for? Or how much declared value coverage do you want this, declare on this? They're going to be like, don't worry about it. Because really what you're saying to them is, how much more can I charge you? So be sure that you ask the best question to get the best answer. So try, and you might find something that works best for you, but start off by trying, how much is this item worth? Or what's the value of this item? And go from there and just enter it. By the way, leave it blank if it's $100 or below. Just leave it blank. Do not get in the habit of always entering $100. Not all carriers cover $100. And if you enter $100, some carriers will charge you for that. So just either really what it's worth or leave it blank, those two kinds of things. Okay. Getting to the rate comparison screen. My rate comparison screen undoubtedly looks much different than your rate comparison screen because you can customize it so much for your store. So you see on the left half that I have all the store data or all the package data. You don't have to have it like that. If you do, it's called ProShip. Your screen might look like this with no data but all rates. That's called WizardShip. There's no right or wrong. It's just two different options in the settings. I happen to like ProShip because I was a store owner for many years and I found that customers always seem to change their mind. And so when you get to the screen and they say, well, wait a minute, how much would it be if I insured it for $400? And you enter that and you click and you say, oh, well, that would make the price $19.14. And then your next smart question is, what's inside of the package that's worth that much? And they'll say, oh, I have some Apple gift cards. Well, if you read that fine print I talked to you about in the service guides for the carriers, you would know gift cards are not an insurable item for declared value coverage. So you would tell your customer, you can spend that much money, but if it's lost, they won't pay out on it because gift cards are not covered. So I'd rather save you the money. You'll be their hero, and you can remove that. And oops, 4,000. Yeah, there we go. We'll remove it, and then you can click OK. Let's see if we can get there. We go. I'm going to go back to 0 here. My computer's mad at me this morning. There we go. So now you're back to 1734. Also, while you're on the screen, you'll notice that I have tabs up at the top, and the number of tabs you have depend on the number of carriers you offer. You cannot add extra tabs beyond the number of carriers you offer, but you can change things around a lot on them. So maybe you want to have best services or something like that as an option with maybe your favorite services, the ones you make the most money on here. Maybe you want to give FedEx and Post Office and UPS each their own tab. There really is only one rule you have to obey, and that is a UPS rule. If you offer UPS services in your store, UPS cannot share the same tab as any other carrier at this time. They need to be on their own tab, and Postomate won't allow you to join them with other carriers. That is a UPS rule, and we do get certified by each of the carriers to make sure everything in Postomate is correct, and so that is a UPS rule, and we follow their rules. But with the other carriers, you are welcome to combine them on the same tab. So you can see we've done that here. When we highlight a service like FedEx Home Delivery, the whole top area will change. The FedEx logo will appear. Any surcharges would appear. Dim weight will appear, meaning that this package is going to go as 4 pounds, even though it's 1 pound because of the size of the box. And then we get some numbers over here, like the A, C, and D number. The A number is your cost. So this should match your bill within a couple of pennies, as long as this is not a ProPack shipment. So in this case, $8.57 should match your bill within a penny or two. It depends on several things. You need to be updated current in Postomate. You need to have your correct tier level set in Postomate. So we'll take a look at that information shortly. The C number is the published rate. It's not really that important with FedEx, but with Post Office, I'll show you. Let's go priority mail. The C number, $8 here in this case, this is the number your customer would pay if they walked into the post office themselves with that package. So that way it's easy to see how much you're charging. And then my favorite number, because it's kind of new and we really enjoy playing with this is the D number. And this D number shows you the dollar profit that you're going to make on this package. So this is always what you're charging your customer. The big numbers in these cells are what you're charging your customer. The A is your cost. When you take what you're charging your customer and subtract the A number, you should get the D number. That's your dollar profit. So on this package, I'm going to make $8.77. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. That's how it works for every shipment. And I'm just going to choose a priority mail here and click the next button. Anything else that you want, any other items that you want, you would choose here. Click next. The final screen allows you to make any changes and see anything that you want to see. And then you can add contents if you want, and you could click finish. At this point, This transmits to Endicia in this case. You wouldn't get this label. Remember I said in the beginning that the only thing different in my Postomate is because I'm on the test servers, I'm going to get labels so that you can see them. So you would get an Endicia label that looks a little bit like this, come out of your machine, you know, like a rip that off and plop it on your package. And once you do that, you have the option of potentially other things that you can print out, like the ship info label. Not really needed. Most stores don't use that. And then you're ready to take your shipment over to Cashmate. But wait, your customer has a heavy envelope they need some extra postage for. So you're going to plop that on your scale, select quick postage. It weighs 2 ounces. It's a letter, but you have to determine, is it a letter or is it a flat? I think we know what a postcard is, but is it a letter or is it a flat? You have to determine that. Which one it is depends on its shape-based characteristics. It's called shape-based mail. Fortunately, we have this little guidelines button right over here, and you can click it, and this tells you the basic criteria to determine whether it's a letter or a flat. So if this was a fat letter, and let's say it was more than a 1/4 inch thick, then it might not be a letter. It might become a non-machinable letter. So then you look down here at non-machinable, and we look at the guidelines for that. So no, I think it would become a flat in that case. So this is an area you need to study and become very, very familiar with, the guidelines for shape-based mail. You do not want sending mail for your customers and have it go postage due because of something you were not aware of. So once you choose this and you hit record, it will print out a stamp if you're using the Dymo printer with Endicia. Or if you want to pull out postage from your drawer, you can do that and uncheck the button down here saying use printable postage and then click record. So either way is fine. Once you're ready for this package and for this to go over to the Cashmate, you always click on this POS button. Now you can click the POS button on Cashmate on your bottom taskbar. In fact, a lot of people do that, but it does not transmit the data over. So you need to go back to Postomate and click on the POS, and that's how it transmits data over. If you ever lose a package in the transmission, maybe your Cashmate hadn't been opened yet for the day, and you go to transfer it, and you get here and it's a blank virtual receipt, it's most likely gone into the hold recall area, and you can click on recall and find it there. So this is called the virtual receipt. You can scroll up and down to get all the information here. There's also a tiny little circle with an arrow down, and that allows you to temporarily see everything on this receipt, and then you can click it again for it to disappear. You can add additional items in the POS or Cashmate by clicking on clicking the button for them. Also quantities. So maybe you have 40 copies. So we'll do 40 at black and white letter. So that's how we do that. Maybe you're going to give a discount on those copies. Okay, we're going to highlight that and say 10% discount. We're going to enter 10 and then go over to discounts and percent discount item. Now I know that my screens over here also look different than yours. I know that because there's so many customizations. Nobody's is just like somebody else's. So but you can change yours to look like mine, or you can use the way you want to on yours. Doesn't matter, but I want to show you the functions, even though they may be in a different location on your Cashmate. So once you've got everything that you want to get on here, you click total. Your credit card interface may be one that works with or integrates with Postomate. It may be a separate machine and system you use because you like the deal or have the equipment or whatever reason, separate from Postomate. Either one is fine. If we really don't care which you choose. It's up to you. But if it's a credit card, and let's face it, 9 out of 10 or more sales now are by credit card, you'll just select credit card, and you can select just credit card or the actual credit card, Visa or MasterCard. You can have this set up however you want. There's lots of options available, but I'm just going to choose credit card and then finish. At this point, you hopefully will get this little pop-up. If not, it's only because it's not set up on your computer or on your Postomate. And this allows you to print the receipt, which is the normal way, on a standard Citizen receipt printer, or you can print it to an invoice or both. or you can email it and enter an email or enter their email address right here. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to do both a standard and invoice so we can kind of see what that looks like. Here's a standard receipt. Yours actually will look prettier than this one. This one doesn't do the centering in our test environment, but that's the little 3.5-inch wide paper that comes out of your Citizen receipt printer. And then if you wanted to create an invoice, which is really handy for businesses like schools and local chamber of commerce, anybody you do business with, then it's going to print out of your report printer. And this is a full 8.5 by 11 invoice. It's a paid invoice. It's not an account invoice. It's a paid invoice. And so it would look like that. And by the way, your logo can be right up here in the corner if you enter it in Cashmate. So many customizations available in Postmate and Cashmate that we just almost can't get started. I've got about 10 more minutes of instruction before I take questions. So let's go back over to the shipping side. And I want to go through some of the things that we can offer you or choices that you can make in Postalmate. So we're going to go up to Tools, Postalmate Settings, and the bulk of all your choices or options in Postalmate are right here, all in a row. These are found on your master workstation. The only ones that are on your auxiliary station are those that have needs to be on your auxiliary station, like printers, because you have different printers on your auxiliaries than on your masters. In general, each state workstation should have its own printer. However, you're welcome to share the report printer, which is very common. Store information here is all of the data about your store. Branding, this is where I told you early on, you can change the logo to be the logo of your store and the color of the stripe in Postalmate right over here. Carrier setup. You probably went in here when you first got your accounts with the carriers and entered your account numbers for each of the carriers. And you have to register with UPS and FedEx to make this able to get ramp ready labels from the carrier. Postalmate does not produce those ramp ready labels. Those come from the carriers. This also is where you're going to have your tier levels. Postalmate does not know what tier level you are. You have to assign a tier level in here. Tier levels are issued by the carriers, UPS, FedEx, and DHL. Endicia also has different rate groups that you may belong to. So you'll want to make sure that you select the correct one so that you get correct choices available to you. If you do not know what your tier level is with UPS and FedEx, there are some videos on our website that show you how to check for that. If you're a brand new store, FedEx usually starts you out at tier level 2, and UPS usually starts you with tier level 4 if you're an ASO and an FASC, respectively. But if you're taking over an existing store, you usually inherit the tier level that the previous owner was, and he or she may not have had that set correctly in Postalmate. So that will be on you to check. It will change your wholesale prices a bit, so you need to make sure that you are as correct as possible. Also, your tier levels change periodically. FedEx, your tier level can change every month, the first week of the month. With UPS, your tier level can change every week. For most stores, it does not change that often, but you need to be aware it can. You should be in the habit of checking it 2 or 3 times a year. Always, always check it in December before you hit your Christmas season. Okay, set shipping rates, add-on rates, surcharge rates, and insurance rates. That's a whole webinar. That's a couple of webinars all on its own. When we do the regional trainings, we do 2 1-hour or 2 45-minute sessions just on rates, about setting rates and what your rates should be and all of that. That's the only place we teach that. We don't teach that we don't give that kind of advice on a webinar because we need the ability for you to be able to communicate with us at that time and ask specific questions. So if you really want some rate information, make sure you get to one of our regionals. But many of you are comfortable with your rates or comfortable with what you should charge. That's fine. So when you're setting rates, you're going to do it from here. We have webinars on we have videos on our website that are very short that teach you how to set your rates and how to check your rates. When you come into this screen, it's always going to say 50 and 100 here. That does not mean that's what you're set to. You might be set to something completely different, but every time you come in here, it's going to say 50 and 100 because this is not where you check your rates. This is where you set your rates. It's just a default number in here, just in case you were poking around and pushing buttons and all of a sudden it reset your rates. There is no back button to rate setting, so make sure that you do it after you close, after you've done a backup for your store for the day in case you mess something up. You can restore that back up. Add-ons are the things that you might want to add onto a package, like a signature or COD. Surcharges are the mean and evil extra charges that the carrier imposes on your package because of its size, weight, destination, any bunch of reasons. It's very easy for surcharges to be a third of the entire package charge. So be sure that you're charging appropriately for those. And when you set those, it's done by carrier. It's done, we provide you your wholesale cost over here on the left, and you're going to set your retail cost to the right. And when I come in here and see additional handling costs $15 and you're charging your customer $15, it makes me cry, because you shouldn't be just passing that through. In most circumstances, for most business models, you're going to want to charge, you're going to want to charge, get that back, upcharge that and charge more. So there we go. And you're going to want to set that. And these are all set by flat fee. So you just set it as you will, going down, and then click save, and then drop down and do the rest. For those of you who purchased an existing store, please go through and check these. Store owners are notorious for not checking these regularly, and it's sometimes even being upside down and getting hit with a fee that's $30 and they're only charging $18 to the customer, and they're losing $12 every time that surcharge applies, and it's really sad. So be sure that you go through your surcharges and check everyone. Add-ons and surcharges look the same here. So over here on fuel surcharges, just leave this alone. It's fine as it is. Insurance settings, again, make sure to set those appropriately. Shipping settings. There's a whole bunch of things here, but this is where you choose whether to use ProShip or WizardShip and which prompt screens come up. And remember, prompt screens are all those screens that come up like the customer's address, the ship to address, the weight, the size, the declared value. Those are all the prompt screens, and this is where you can turn them on or off. The service display, excuse me, is first of all what you're naming each of the tabs on the rate comparison screen and what things are in what tabs. So the best services, you can see I have all DHL, FedEx Express, FedEx Ground, and On Track showing. And for post office, you can see that's gray, and that's because I do not have all post office services showing. I only have some. And to see which ones, you have to open up this carrier by clicking on the little arrow to the left, and it's a little tricky. And you can see, goodness, scrolling down, I only have priority mail. That's the only one I wanted showing up on my main screen. So that's how I set that one up. You can change these around as you want. Bear in mind, there's a different set for carrier branded packaging as generic packaging. Remember I said earlier, carrier branded packaging has a different rate structure than generic packaging. And so they have different tabs and different options. Okay. I'm going to scroll. Oh, I'm going to go over here to, let's go to the other tab. And the other tab is actually a really important tab. So remember I showed you the A, C, and D number on the rate comparison screen. A was your cost. C was the published rate from the carrier before any discounts. And D was the dollar profit you're making. You set those up right here in position 1, position 2, position 3. And if you want it like I had it on my screen, the first one's going to start with the word wholesale. The second one's going to start with the word published. And the third one's going to start with the word profit. The other thing I want to make sure that you do on this screen that's very important is over here on dimensions, you have several options. Please do not choose the first one. Choose either require dimensions for all services or require dimensions for services with dim rating. This is so that you are required to enter a dimension if a dimension could change the price. And so that's very, very important. You don't wanting to get dinged because somebody, maybe an employee or somebody new, did not enter dimensions when they ought to have. Okay, and then if you make any changes here, you just click save. And then let's go down to drop-off. This is where you set up Postalmate so that you can record drop-offs in Postalmate. It goes by carrier, and you can have it have its own disclaimer. You can also have you have the option of charging for email notification, taping and sealing, and adding insurance to a drop-off if you use an alternate insurance company that supports that. Ship insurance and RS package insurance both support drop-off insurance. When we get down to UPS, if you are a UPS authorized shipping outlet or a UPS access point, you will want to enter your username and password for the access point software. When you enter the tracking number in Postalmate, it will then ask you if you want to open the access point software so that you can record it in there. It's very important. It's wonderful if you want to record all your drop-offs in Postalmate. I encourage it because it's a backup system should you ever not get compensated the amount you feel you should from any of the carriers. But with UPS, you will only get compensated if you're also doing it in Access Point. You don't have to do it in Postmate, but you have to do it in Access Point, which is their website and their software. So whether you want to do it in both or Access Point only is your call, but please don't avoid using Access Point. You must use Access Point. ProPack settings, again, ProPack is the estimation program for using Postmate to help you package an item. And this is where the settings are for that. Package receiving is for two purposes, FedEx HAL locations, which we have a few of, but most of you will use this for receiving packages for your mailbox customers. Email notifications is where you can set that up, by the way. If you have a website, and you have the tracking ability on your website for the packages, you can actually have the customer's email that they get go to your website to track it rather than the carrier's website, which is much better. We don't want to send them to the carrier's website. We always want to send them to your website. If you don't have a website, by the way, and you are looking at getting one, absolutely marvelous websites are available from RS Associates for a very small fee. They are designed for this industry and they look amazing. They do work heavily on SEOs, so getting lots of hits on it. So they come up in your search bars with Google and what have you high up. So that can be located at rscentral.org. That's RS, retail shipping is what it stands for, rscentral.org. Take a look at that. Your sales tax settings are here, departments and products, customer settings. Everything else here is pretty standard. Label settings, just make sure that your everything is hooked up correctly here. If you're getting some extra labels you don't want, you can always turn them off over here to the right. And then station settings, make sure that everything in here that can be checkmarked is checkmarked and click Save. Also, if Postalmate is really tiny on your nice, beautiful screen, you can change the size of Postalmate right here, size of transaction screens. I always encourage you to use dynamic, which is the largest, and then you can always go back, scale it down smaller if you want. But Postalmate is most likely the main software used in your store, so you want it front and center and big. So be sure and assign your screen size is big. And the last thing on this that's really, really important is your default report printer. So that you don't end up with hiccups in printing, make sure that your default report printer in Windows, which is always needs to be your copier or printer, 8.5 by 11, must be, cannot be your label printer, cannot be your receipt printer, cannot be your Dymo printer, must be an 8.5 by 11 printer. That needs to be set in Windows as your default and in Postalmate as your default. If not, you will end up with, I promise you, with headaches. Okay, so we're going to close this up. And then we're going to go over to the POS and show you some of the settings over there that you may want to attend to. And I have a few favorite ones, and we're not going to go through all of them, but we're going to start with tools, options, and register settings. We're only scratching the surface of Postmate. There's so much more available to you. So this, as you can see, looks very much like over here. This is the buttons and where you assign these buttons. Now, I will give you a warning. Don't assign buttons for your boxes, your cardboard boxes. I know it may sound like it makes sense. So I'll have a 12 cube and a 14 cube. Trust me, especially if you're a brand new store. When you open your store, you might only open your store with 8 or 10 different box sizes. But stores that have been open for 5 years or longer have on average between 40 and 70 different box sizes they carry at any one time. That's way too many to have on all your buttons. So save your buttons for something else and use the SKU as the box. And I'll try to remember to show you how that's done. But this is where you can set also the names of these tabs right over here. And then you can set your cash register functions and your tender types. Remember, I told you you could customize this. So that's all done right here. Receipt settings, this is where you set your Citizen receipt printer as your printer of choice and when you want it to print and what information you want to include on that receipt. We generally recommend that you leave weight and dimensions off your receipt. There's really no reason for your customer to have that information, and we don't want to give them all the information they need to go online and compare your prices with somebody else's. But weight and dimensions are always held in Postalmate. It will never fail, so you will always have that data should you need it in the future. Receipt layout, this is where you can set up your logo to be on your receipt if your receipt printer supports it. And also this is where you set up your logo to be on any invoices or large 8.5 by 11 papers that come out. Then your store header, always leave a little space after your last line, and then your shipping disclaimer. And this is customized by you. We do not have a canned one that we can offer you or give you any advice on this. Every store designs their own shipping disclaimer. Basically, it's to keep you out of hot water in your state should there be any claims or any issues with the package. So basically, it needs to be a we're responsible for nothing, you're responsible for everything, don't sue us type thing. I'm not scaring you, really. But you know, you get the idea. It's the same thing you get at Best Buy when the receipt comes out, you know, a foot long. You don't have to have it a foot long, but you can have it as long as you want. And here's the cool thing. This area here, the middle of this, is only going to print when you've done a shipping transaction in Postalmate and brought it over to Cashmate. It will not print if you've only using Cashmate. Maybe you'd sell a fax or 20 copies. It will not include the shipping disclaimer in that case. So it won't waste paper. Which is kind of cool. And then your trailer, anything you want to say, thank you for coming in, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. If you want to use a credit card system that is integrated in Postmate, we have these choices here. Just a heads up, I think Payware Connect is going away. Verifone is, I believe, is ending service on that. So we are left with Cayenne Genius, SignaPay, and OpenEdge. If you want to get information on those, you can look there. If you want to use a separate system, that's perfectly fine. Pull display is not required anywhere unless you're in California and your scale is not visible. No, and your screen is not visible to your customers. So that's when a pull display is needed. California, if your customers cannot see your screen. And the reason is for a pull display is so that your customers can see the charges as they're being rung up. Grocery stores, Walmart, they all have pull displays. You're familiar with those. So that's the only time you need that. Tendering, you can choose your tendering. We do interface with QuickBooks Online, so if you want to set that up, you can. Quote feature, and then the famous other tab. And I want to get to the other tab because a really important feature is over here, and I don't want you to forget. It's called the tender type. Check on yours to make sure there is a check mark here at tender type, and I'm going to show you why that happens, why you need this. I'm going to click OK. And you know, you got into this business because you are good with customer service and your customers love you and you love your customers and you yakety yak, yak, yak with all your customers. And they ring up a shipment and a book stamps or whatever, and you click on total and then you click on finish or just enter on your keyboard because it's just, you get to rolling and that's what you do. And it finishes out as cash. The problem is they then want to hand you a credit card and you can't go back and change it because you already receipts coming out because it says you went cash. Postalmate automatically defaults to cash when you hit enter, but you can disable that. And so that's what that button was. It disabled it. So I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. I know you can't see it, but you're going to hear it. See, nothing happened. And even on my display, if I click on finish with the mouse, nothing's happening. That's because it's going to require we choose something from here in order to allow us to finish. If it is cash, that's fine. We can click the cash button or the denomination button. I would just click the cash button. But that way we're not it's basically a big reminder for us to not accidentally hit the wrong button. So if it's cash, we just hit cash and then it finishes out. Same as always. Okay. Let's see, it is time for us to finish. I'm going to close the register day and then we're going to go to questions. If you're coming up with questions, go ahead and start typing them in and I'll try to get to them. And we'll close the register day in Cashmate first. And to do that, we go to File, Close Register Day. This needs to be done every single day. Close Register Day. And only the things will populate here that you've done. So there, you might have more options, and I'll just click this so you can see all the options set up. But if you didn't have any MasterCard or any of the gift certificate or whatever, there's no reason for it to show up. So I had cash today and I had credit card charges today. Now I can count my drawer. out and just enter the amount, or I can use Postalmate or Cashmate to help me with that by clicking on the red Sigma button. And that allows me to enter the amount of coins, let's say 50 pennies and 5 nickels and 2 dimes. And so you get the idea. Obviously I did this wrong. I need to be 6 nickels. And so as you enter, it will calculate and add up and count down. So you can do it that way, or you can just count it out and enter the amount. Here's kind of a recommendation. If you have employees, make them use the Sigma button and enter all of the cash separately so there's less chance for errors. If it's just you and your spouse or partner, and you don't feel like using the Sigma button and you just want to count it and enter it, that's fine. No problem. See, here's the deal. Here's what I know. You don't steal from you. But employees could. So you decide how it works in your store. And then credit card, I really recommend clicking on the Sigma button and then just check marking for every receipt you have in your drawer that was signed or something from the credit card company and matching that up. Once you got that, everything should match. You should have an overage of 0. The truth of the matter is you'll often be off by a few pennies, and that comes from the fact that we'll get somebody who makes a sale. Maybe they did some copies and it was 15, 16 cents with tax, and they give you a nickel and a dime and they're scrounging around looking for a penny, and you say, don't worry about it, catch it next time. No problem, we got you covered. That's how you end up up and down from pennies. So don't worry about that. But once you do that, you're going to click on close day. When you click on close day, do you want to close for the day? The answer is yes. Now, this is the important one. The X report will not be available except right now. This is the only time the X report is going to be available. Tomorrow it won't be available. In 5 minutes it won't be available. Do you want to print it out? Yes. Always choose yes. This comes out of your Citizen receipt printer, and it's equivalent to the old-fashioned Z report that comes from cash registers. So you're going to click yes, and it's going to print out. I don't have a printer hooked up for that, so it won't print out on mine. And then once you've done all that, you click exit. Now you're ready to close Postalmate by closing Cashmate first and then Postalmate. And you're going to say yes. And I'm not going to do it right now, but it's going to ask you to do a backup. Would you like to do a backup? And you're going to say yes. And the reason you're going to say yes is because you do a backup every single day. We have a saying in support that goes, there are those who back up every day and those that will, because heaven forbid something bad happen and you not have data. It happens on a fairly regular basis. I would say every other month we'll get some customer who hasn't been backing up and their hard drive crashed because they don't take care of their computer either. That might have been the previous store owner for those of you that purchased a store. So be making daily backups. And so we go and we're able to figure out and get into their C drive and get their backups, but their last backup was 8 months ago. And there's been 4 updates. Now we have to completely uninstall Postalmate and reinstall Postalmate and restore that backup. They have to go through all of that. They've lost all account payments. They've lost all mailbox changes. They've lost any changes, updates to rates that they've made. All of that is gone. All the package history between then and now is gone. It's not a good thing. So always make daily backups. In Postalmate PM Utilities, which is the back end of Postalmate, you can set Postalmate to back up to 2 locations every night. One, like your C drive, where it's set to do, and the second should be like a cloud location, maybe Dropbox or Google Cloud or whatever it is that you use. Have it go to that location. You can get a Dropbox account, dropbox.com, for free and use it with Postalmate, and you will never have to pay a dime to Dropbox. It can be completely free forever and ever. Postalmate will never have enough data in it that it will end up charging you anything. So that can be a great resource. So I'm ready for any questions that you have. I don't have any questions up there. I have several of you on board that are watching and have been with me the whole time, but I don't have any questions, which means I either did a really good job, you're really chicken to ask questions, or you all fell asleep. I hope you didn't fall asleep. Maybe you just got busy with a bunch of customers, and that would be okay too. So I don't have any questions. I have an irritating message from one of my coworkers who's teasing and harassing me. But since we don't have any questions to answer right now, if you think of a question, please email it to support. support@pcsynergy.com. I'll actually monitor the support tickets that come in over the next 15 or 20 minutes. And if I see one come in from a webinar, don't be surprised that I answer it from me personally and give you a call on it or give you an email back on it. I do sometimes do that. So I want to wish you well in your business. If you have any questions at all, we're here. We're part of your family now, and you're part of our family. So welcome and have a great day and a great week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.